Hello and welcome to Murphy's Garden, and you join me on this beautiful day. The sun is finally shining. We've had so much rain here in the UK and it's just wonderful to see blue sky and sunshine. So we're up early, we've got to make the most of this day because we've got lots to do. So I'll just walk down the long walk and we'll head through the woodland garden and then I'll tell you what we need to do. I have been busy weeding, doing lots of weeding because I want it all weeded because we're going to have lots of chippings and we can put them directly on the borders. So we'll head through the woodland garden. The woodland garden, it's important that it's all weeded because it's at this time of year that the lovely little bulbs are all starting to poke through, and it's nice to be able to enjoy them, removing all the dead plants out of the way. You can obviously see them shine through a little bit better with that all gone. And the silver birches look lovely in the sunshine. The lovely white, the white trunk looks good. Last spring I did scrub them all to get rid of all the green algae, and I'll probably, it seems a bit mad when I'm doing it, but I will probably do it again this year because it does make them look much better. Oh, I can't tell you how lovely it is to see the sun. It's glorious. Had quite a heavy frost. The roof of the house is quite icy actually, and it is cold, but I'd rather cold than wet. So let me turn the camera around and I'll show you where we're at. And so this is the tree that we cut down at the beginning of the year, a cherry tree. And so we need to get that wood all split and processed, and that can be seasoning, ready for burning it. Probably not this year, possibly the year after, but it can be drying out. We've got to deal with all this brash. This is all the branches of the cherry tree, and you'll see that it's absolutely covered in little sparrows. The sparrows seem to love it on the ground more than they ever did when it was on the tree for some reason, whether they just feel safe and protected, but they seem to love playing in it, and I feel a bit guilty removing it, but clearly we can't leave it here for much longer. It's been here since the beginning of January and we're now middle of February, so it's really got to be dealt with. This is all the clematis that I'll probably try and make a few wreaths with, but everything else will be shredded, and that was why I wanted to get the borders cleared so that we can put the shredding on the borders. So Al's made a start. We have had a delivery of wood because we're getting quite low on wood to burn, so we've had a delivery, so I'm going to go and help him offload that, and then we'll begin the process of dealing with all of this. This is the wood that Alistair collected earlier in the week. He does it in his trailer, which is a good way of keeping the cost down because there's obviously more to deliver it. This is hardwood, and this is equivalent of about 3 tonnes, which equates to about 2.5 cords. You'll see that it's quite small in terms of the size. That's because our stoves here in the UK are a lot smaller than they are in other parts of the world. We're paying £500 for this. So it'll be interesting to know the cost of wood in other parts of the world. I suspect we in the UK are paying a lot more than other places. So let's get this stacked up in the wood sheds. Trailer is empty, the wood is stacked right to the top, way up there, and then that one is almost full as well, and that just leaves this one empty, which will be free for the stuff that we've got to season. So let's go and see. You can hear Alistair in the background, so let's go and see how he's getting on. And he's made a good start, and you'll see that both hungry beasts are in operation, both the chipper and the shredder, and Alistair showed us how he sharpens the blades of both of them so that they're really pristine and sharp and can get through this big workload no problem. So this is just to let you see some of the chips, the wood chips that are coming out. So this will be perfect, really, really lovely for putting on the garden as a mulch. And then on this side, this is what the shredder produces. So it's a different product that comes out the other end. So let's see it in operation. This little blackbird is curious as to what we're up to and is watching us and following us everywhere. So first the chipper. The chipper loves this kind of material, big long branches. It doesn't like it if it's short branches, but rather nice big long branches. Go through it all day. It could eat this up, no problem. It likes thicker pieces of wood as opposed to long tangly stems, whereas the shredder is the opposite. So the shredder is really good at coping with all these little bitty bits, short little bits of twigs and things, and it goes through there, pulls them in and spits it out the other end, whereas the other one, the chipper, chokes up with that kind of stuff. And this big pile is clematis. This pile would definitely be more suited to the shredder rather than the chipper. However, I want to rescue some of it before it goes into the shredder because I have other plans for it. Now this is actually Clematis montana, which is a group 1 clematis. We talked about clematis pruning in last week's video, and that was a group 3, the Princess Kate, which has to be cut right to the ground at this time of year. But if you have got a montana, which is a group 1, it's important not to prune it, especially at this time of year, as if you do, you will lose all the flowers. Rather, it doesn't really need pruning, but unless it gets completely out of control, in which case cut it back a little bit or tame it back a bit after it's finished flowering after the spring. The reason I've got so much of it at this time of year is simply because we've removed the cherry tree which it was climbing through, and it did look absolutely lovely, and I'm really rather sad about losing it, but I'm going to make the most of it and use it to make lots of wreaths, because in my view you can never have too many wreaths. The stems are quite damp because we've had all this wet weather, and so that makes them easier to manipulate. However, the first one I did was a little bit rubbish. I have made them before, but I am a bit out of practice. But the first one wasn't very good, but I did get better as time went on. It's getting a bit dark outside, but I can't resist making a wreath, so I'll pop into my shed and use some of these flowers left over from Christmas and the Christmas tree just to make a wreath for a friend. It's now the following weekend, so we got finished late on Saturday night. After making all the wreaths, I ended up in my shed making one for a friend, and I came out and it was pitch black. And then the next day, sadly, it was very, very wet on last Sunday. So although I really wanted to get the borders weeded and the mulch spread, I couldn't really do that. So I'm doing it today, and it's quite a nice day today. It's not as sunny as it was, but it's a lot warmer. It's a 2 trouser day today instead of 3 trousers. It's definitely a lot milder. So I've got lots I want to get done. But before we do, we'll just have a little walk around and just have a little check on everything. One of the things I wanted to say, you'll notice here on the Hornbeam Walk that we have got bird feeders all along under the trees, and I love that because we can watch the birds in the trees playing. They love the Hornbeam Walk. They really use it as a kind of play frame, I think of it as. But one of the reasons I haven't got any food in the feeders at the moment is because we saw a rat a few weeks back, several weeks back, and I don't want to encourage rats in the garden, so for that reason I stopped feeding. But since then I have actually read an article which was in the Telegraph by Bunny Guinness. Bunny, I'm a big fan of Bunny. I learn lots and lots from her. She's very, very experienced gardener, and she often writes for the Telegraph. But there was an article talking about the best way to support garden birds. I've got it here on my phone, and the best way of doing that is to not feed them. This may seem counterintuitive because we all enjoy feeding them, we all enjoy watching all the birds in our gardens. However, it's a bit of a quandary. because there's been a lot of links to bird feeders and bird diseases. And the big disease that people who know about birds are talking about is this trichomoniasis. It's a horrible disease. It's killing lots of our garden birds. And this article just talks all about that. So this disease is held in birds' saliva. Let me just read what it says, because it's probably the best way. So a primary concern is the spreading of diseases, most notably trichomoniasis. It's found in many birds, including pigeons and birds of prey, but it's most well known for its disastrous effects on the greenfinch population due to an epidemic in 2005. Earlier this year, the RSPB withdrew the sale of bird feeders as they're thought to spread the disease, flat bird feeders, because they're definitely linked to the disease. And it was explained that birds become sick and the disease spreads through their saliva, and infected birds cannot swallow, and then they regurgitate the food back out again, probably onto the bird table. So anyone who feeds the birds will have noticed that the main visitors benefiting are usually blue tits and great tits, and the numbers of these are massively increasing in line with our supplementary feeding, whereas populations of other species of birds are thought to be declining as a result. So there's lots of debate at the moment as to whether or not we are doing more harm than good by feeding our birds. I think the jury's still out on the results, but in the interim period, if you do feed the birds, it's recommended to wash the feeders with soapy water, even using bleach, and do that every week, which I definitely don't do. And if you're putting out water, the water should be changed every single day, again, which I definitely don't do. So I think for if you've got a busy life and you know you're not going to do that, then probably the better thing is not to feed them at all, but rather encourage the birds in our gardens through the plants by attracting insects into the garden, by giving the birds lots of habitat, lots of berries, lots of things to eat in other forms. That's far, far, far better. So that's what I'm focusing on. But interested to know what you think of this. I thought that was a really interesting article. Anyway, back to today and what we're up to. So we'll head, I'm just going to go and have a look in the greenhouse, because a couple of weeks back we put a few seeds in the greenhouse, and to be honest, I haven't even looked at them this week, so it would be nice to do that. So let's turn the camera around. Okay, so let's just head into the greenhouse, because I haven't looked at it and I'm dying to know whether anything is happening. Oh, by the way, these are the wreaths that I made. I didn't know where to put them, so I played hoopla and threw them onto this. I'll have to find somewhere to put them, perhaps in the shed. So that's good that the roses are all done. That's the strolch, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about mulches in a minute when we go and have a look at the chippings that we've created. Mike is hopefully coming this weekend, perhaps, I think, to measure out the fencing, which would be really good. I really want to get pushed on with that job. And in the greenhouse is, oh wow, oh look, aha, the little irises have come out. Aren't they lovely? Oh, what kind were these? These are, oh yeah, they're just irises reticulata. I can't remember which kind they were, I forget. Aren't they lovely? I better water them, quite dry. On the top here we've just got all the succulents, which succulents don't mind the cold, but they don't like wet, so they definitely wouldn't have survived out in the rain. And underneath here are the broad beans. So these are the broad beans that haven't had any heat, and they're coming through. But I did put some under the, under the propagators, which have got some heat. So that's the difference between the two. So you can see these are coming on a little bit quicker, and they all need watering desperately. Have been a little bit neglectful. So yeah, they are doing well. What's under here? More broad beans, and that's the mizuna. Some parsley coming through, some leeks coming through, and something else. I can't remember what that is. That's that. What's that? Oh, that's kale. So see what's under here. What have we got here? That's the Liastris. Oh heck, the label's fallen off that one. Oh, that's the Sanguisorba. I don't know why the label's come off that. I'm terrible with labels. This is the Sanguisorba alba, and that's the Cephalaria. That needs to come out because it's getting a bit restricted by the propagator. So these are all quite hardy. So now they've germinated, they can come on. That could be potted on actually. So some success in the greenhouse, but yeah, it's nice and warm. Okay, let's now head down to where all the mulch is. So just want to talk a little bit about mulches. As we head past the parterre, we've talked lots about the Strolch mulch that I use in the parterre. Mulches are a really good way of suppressing weeds, which means that the garden is a lot easier to maintain. I know when I first started gardening, I spent so much time weeding. I was always weeding, and it takes the enjoyment out of the garden, and you can't push on and progress with other projects whilst you're constantly weeding. So it's definitely good from a time-saving perspective. I know Alistair works with his business, he gardens for lots of people, and it is quite surprising how so many people seem quite resistant or just don't know about mulches and the benefits of them. The biggest benefit of all, as well as time saving, and if you're paying, especially if you're paying for somebody to come and weed, if you mulch, you're going to need less labour as well, so that's going to save you from that perspective as well. But the other point of mulches is that after we've had all this very wet weather, we've had lots of rain here in the UK, and we're all moaning about how wet it has been. However, in a few months' time, we're all going to be moaning about how dry it is, because when we're in summer, we would do anything to have a little bit of moisture. And so the best thing to do is, although we can save water in water butts, it's limited how much water you can actually hold on to, but the best place to hold on to moisture and lock that moisture in is in our soil, and we've got lots and lots of that. So I look at mulching at this time of year as a really good way of banking that moisture, holding on to it, keeping it for when we're going to need it a few months down the line. I didn't really used to know about mulch, and I didn't used to use it, and so perhaps a little bit sceptical when I first did. But I have been experimenting in my own garden to find out whether or not it works. Last year I conducted an experiment. So in the spring we had quite a wet, well, most winters are wet. We had, after the wet winter, I mulched the new area where the trees are up the top, mulched that heavily with bark chippings, masses and masses of bark chippings, really thick. I put that on, and then through the drought period in July and August, we had very little rain over that summer period. And so I did an experiment. I pushed back all the mulch and I dug down in one part of this area which is on pure sand, and it really doesn't hold on to moisture very much at all. So I was quite sceptical as to whether there'd be any moisture there, and to my surprise, it was still quite moist. It held on to the moisture throughout all that really dry period. So for me, it proves that it works. This is a little experiment that I'm going to conduct just to prove this point. So I've got 2 trays of compost, exactly the same compost, both same trays. I've put water on both, the same amount, and then on one I'm going to cover with Strolch and the other one I'm going to leave, and I'm putting them both in the greenhouse where it's quite hot, and I'm going to monitor to see what happens. So 2 days has gone by and the compost still feels, it doesn't feel dried out, it's crumbly, but there's no moisture really there. Whereas if I scrape back the Strolch carefully, the soil under here is still very wet. It's held on to all of that moisture. That moisture hasn't gone anywhere here, so much so you can actually wring it out and it drips. So that quite clearly shows that the Strolch has stopped any evaporation, whereas this one, although still nice, and it is quite nice compost, much nicer than would be in the average garden soil, so it's still nice, but it's not holding on to the moisture in quite the same way. So definitely shows Strolch to do its job. Now I've played around with different types of mulches. I've tried grass clippings, which obviously we have in abundance when we cut the grass, and the idea is that you spread them on really thick, and they are meant to suppress the weeds, and they did suppress the weeds to a point. However, what I find was that I got moss all over the borders. There was moss completely covering everything, and I don't know if that's a particularly bad or good thing, but I just didn't really want it, and so that for me was a side effect of using grass clippings, particularly after the winter when you've got a lot of moss in the grass. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that people use is straw, just ordinary straw. I have tried that, this autumn with some garlic that I planted. I covered it in straw just to suppress the weeds over the winter period. And when I went back, to my horror, the straw had seeded itself and had grown, and so taken away the vigour from the garlic because it was competing. So the garlic in that part didn't do as well because of the seeding of the straw. So for me, I won't use straw again. Strolch is mineralised straw, and so it's been treated, so it won't do that. But the downside of strolch, is that it's really quite expensive. And it's not practical, cost effective to do the whole garden with it. I certainly couldn't afford it. I did buy a big pallet, and if you buy a pallet, it's cheaper that way. And I used the pallet of strolch to mulch all of the parterre, and I thought I would experiment with the hornbeam walk as well, and I did mulch that as well. That has been quite successful to a point. Where it's mulched on the hornbeam walk is underneath deciduous trees. Obviously hornbeam are deciduous, and so you obviously get the leaf litter falling on top of the strolch. So I think long term it won't last as long as it does in the parterre. But if you've got a small area, particularly somebody I know has got a little area outside the front of their house, and they've got a little border, and she's got disability issues now, and she's relying on her daughter coming and gardening. And I said, well, why not just cover it with strolch? Go and buy some strolch, cover it, and you won't need to weed it. She can weed it, and then mulch, put the strolch on, and then you know that will keep you going for a year or more. So she was going to have a look at that. So in places like that, it works really well. In a small area, I strongly recommend strolch. It doesn't get moved around by the birds, which bark chippings definitely do. And it has advantages over the other types of mulch I've talked about. But now in this instance, we have got an abundance of chipping. So let's have a look. So we saw Al doing all the chipping with the shredder and the chipper. So this is the shredding. So this is lighter, it's finer, and I prefer this for my herbaceous borders because it's not so heavy and it's not going to bury the plants. Whereas this stuff, which is chippings, seems quite this bigger stuff here, which is far too big for the herbaceous borders. This stuff's not so bad, but I prefer to use chippings around shrubs because it's not going to, you're going to put it on the bare soil. It's not going to be near the collar of the plants. So I would prefer to keep that for perhaps up the top or elsewhere in the woodland garden somewhere. We've got plenty of use for it, but I'm going to try and use, I don't know if this will cover the whole border, but I might do a mix of both. Perhaps I'll do a mix of both. So this area I've sort of done, but not perhaps could do with a little bit more on there, and that was done with the chippings that Alistair brought back from his uncle's when he was doing some work for him. This border's been weeded and needs to be covered before the weeds come back again, and this border here has still got to be weeded. I did make a start on cutting back, but you'll see that there are lots of weeds in there, lots of grass. This year seems to have seeded in the border, so I need to get stuck in and sort that out. This huge clump here is eupatorium, and what I could do with doing is, especially that side, this side isn't as bad, but it gets very, very, very big over a period of time. It spreads, and you'll see that it's donutting a little bit in the middle there. So you haven't got the vigorous growth in the middle, it's all coming around the outside. So it's a case of digging it up, which is a nightmare, it's really hard going, but we have got some good tools to do it now. digging it up and taking out that donutted bit in the middle and then replanting it. So that's my fun job for today, and getting rid of all these weeds. So let's get to work. Oh gosh, there's so many weeds. I'm not sure what to do about that eupatorium because it's massive, and I'm not sure if I can get that out on my own. Alistair said let's just get the digger in and do it with the digger. Right, what have I done with my spade? Oh, there it is. So even at this time of year, there's a lot coming through, so you have to be a little bit careful what you're going to stand on. But you can see all this grass everywhere. It's quite annoying. Last spring we did a video where we tested out lots of different weeding tools on the market, and we had some really good results. However, I do seem to always gravitate back to my trusty old spade. Anyway, let's get this job done and speed things up. So I've weeded the border and I want to put the mulch down, but before I do, I would really quite like to get this eupatorium split and moved, and then I can mulch on top. If I mulch everywhere else, I'd have to leave this, but Alistair said about doing it next time we've got the digger in, but I don't know when that will be, and everything's starting to push through, so I'm going to give it a go. I've already made a little bit of a start and it's not so bad with the right equipment, and I really recommend this. I think it's called a root slayer. I know it's called a root slayer because I've talked about it before. It's got these blades on the side, so it's far better than any spade that I've ever used. It really does make quick work of it. So this is hard going. It's a big clump, but I'll just show you in action. I think the first thing I need to do is take my coat off because it's quite hot now, or at least I'm quite hot. And so I begin just by going around the outside and making it into smallish sections. The thing is that if Al saw me, he'd say, well, let me do it. But the truth is, he's got other things to do. And I don't know about you, but I hate being reliant on other people. I want to be able to do stuff myself. And this means I can do it myself. And it's important to let the tool do all the work. So kind of throw the blade in and it naturally just cuts through the roots, and then this lovely long handle that it's got just acts like a lever so that you're not really not putting much strain on your body, and it's made fairly quick work of what I thought was going to be a really difficult job. It's actually not too bad, so I'm just continuing to cut it into nice small sections that I can easily move around. And so I've dug up all of the eupatorium on this side. Still obviously got that side to do, but that might be for another day. It keeps raining now, which is a pain. But what I've done, I've taken out any of the stuff that's kind of polluted with other plants or weeds or nettles, and I'll put that on the compost heap. And then I've got some quite nice stuff here and some really nice stuff over there. So just wanted to have a chat with Al, because the intention is we're going to be putting in a pillar where that box hedging comes to an end, where the fork is actually. So I don't want to replant the eupatorium where that pillar is going to go. And so I just wanted to check with him where exactly he wanted it. So let's just get this back in again. So just taking out any bits that there's, bad growth in, just splitting it, cutting out anywhere there's, the vigor isn't so good, and putting it back in again. So I dug some holes and placed the clumps, the nice healthy clumps, back in again, and then just firmed the soil around it. Camera work's not great because it's muddy and filthy and now wet. Now for the fun part. So this is all the mulch. I'm going to use this first. Oh, I'm knackered. I'm going to use this first. Oh, that's lovely. And this was somebody who watches my channel told me about. This is a potato fork, and it's brilliant for this kind of job, moving compost around. There is a bit of heat in this, but I don't think it matters too much. I think it will soon cool down, and as I say, most of the things are below the ground anyway, so it should be okay. So this is the job I like. I've had to do all that painful job to get to this bit. Right, let's start up here. Oh, it's actually quite warm today. I'm finding I'm quite hot. Right, let's see. Spread this out. I just don't want this too near the edge. Turn it up so you can see what we're doing. I think we can just tip this on for quickness. And back and forward, just filling the wheelbarrow and covering all areas within the quadrant garden with a good layer of mulch. I love just throwing it on because it seems to go on quite lightly. It doesn't kind of bury any of the plants too much. So I continued just to do this and capturing it in slow motion. You can just see how cool it looks. It goes on really nicely. And I think we're done. It's been an exhausting day. I've used up all of the mulch really. There's a little bit there, but not much. But we've got excellent cover on all 4 of the areas. Nice thick layer of mulch. It looks lovely. It makes the garden look really well cared for, maintained, but it will improve the structure of the soil. And more importantly, you can see it's raining and it will do its job at locking all that moisture in. Because the sun will come out again, the sun will shine again, and we will hold on to all that moisture for the summer ahead. On another bleak day, it's hard to remember that spring is around the corner, but the signs are everywhere. So I'm going to go and have one more look at my lovely irises to cheer me up. I'm going to go inside, give myself a good scrub down as I am covered in mud. But before I do, I'll pick some kale and I'm going to go and make a lovely big hot comforting bowl of minestrone soup. So thank you very much for watching and join me again in the next video. Bye for now.